I hope everybody's doing well today. Well, today, as I often do, I'm going to talk about the return of Christ, and it's going to be pretty exciting. I've got some information here that I think is very significant in the timing of the return of the rapture, and Jesus could return any day. In other messages, I've explained some events that Jesus foretold: wars, earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in the form of pandemics, and these are all harbingers of the end. There's the rapid degeneration of people in their hearts, their minds, their actions, as described in 2 Timothy. We have the rapid increase of knowledge and travel prophesied in Daniel. And all these signs are here among many, many other signs in the Bible, and all of them are the subject of considerable dispute, as scoffers will write them off as being coincidences. But God did give us one sign that can't so easily be explained away and ignored: the miracle of Israel. Its rebirth after 2,000 years, so intimately and clearly described by the prophets of old. Here's one example. In Luke it says, "And they, being the Israelis, shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled." Now in Amos chapter 9, starting at verse 13, it says, "I will bring again the captive people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land which I have given them, says the Lord thy God." This miracle of the restoration of Israel is very remarkable in that no other ancient civilization has ever been revived after 2,000 years of extinction. Clearly, Israel has been restored, and they've been planted in their ancient homeland. So what happens next? The Bible clearly teaches that a new temple will be built in the future, and some of the work has already taken place. The first temple we know was built by Solomon and was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple was built after the Jews returned from captivity 70 years later. The third temple we know is going to exist during the Great Tribulation. Daniel 9:27 refers to this temple when he says that the prince who is to come, or the Antichrist, will enter it and stop the sacrifices in the middle of the tribulation. And Paul also refers to the temple when he declares that the man of lawlessness, also the Antichrist, will defile this temple by entering, and he's going to declare himself to be God. This temple is also mentioned in Revelation 11 when John is told to measure it. As we know, this temple does not exist right now. This raises the obvious question: when is this temple going to be built? The Bible gives us some clues. Two things are very clear: that the temple will be in existence when the Antichrist reveals himself, and that it's going to be in the middle of the tribulation. Some people think that since this happens during the tribulation, well, they've concluded the temple is likely to be rebuilt before the tribulation even begins because of the complexities of its construction. And because of this belief, there's a lot of excitement on several end times websites, because Israel 365, an Orthodox Jewish website in Israel, has reported that Orthodox Jews have started building the third temple. For the most part, this group has manufactured all the utensils and furniture necessary for a functioning temple, including the sacrificial altar. They've also set up a school to train the priests on how to perform the sacrificial offerings. This is going to cut off an awful lot of the time that would be necessary to rebuild the temple, as if you've ever read the Old Testament account of building the temple, it's very intricate, very particular, and has to be done exactly to certain specifications. As you would probably expect, there's a tremendous opposition to people who want to rebuild the temple. Many assume that this would come just from Muslims, but the State of Israel and even many Christians oppose the idea. It would be a political powder keg that pragmatic people want to avoid. Many conclude that such political and religious opposition make building a third temple impossible. But this conclusion overlooks the fact that the Jewish festivities could begin overnight. That's because they plan to create a temple much like the tabernacle of Moses, and they are ready to do so at any time they choose. And it would be easy because that's really a big tent. Everything has already been prepared, and once the temporary temple is put up, they could resume sacrifices and revive their plans to build a permanent structure around and above the temporary one. So what's stopping them from doing this? Well, one is the location. The next temple can only be built where the two previous temples stood because the Holy of Holies must be on the exact same spot. It isn't clear where the previous temples were located on the Temple Mount. Many scholars believe they stood exactly where the Dome of the Rock currently stands. Now that may be wrong, but there's no way to prove the exact location without conducting archaeological excavations on the Temple Mount. Good luck with that. If the third temple is to be built where the Dome of the Rock stands, it would have to be removed either by man or God. It could, of course, be burnt to the ground by a saboteur, but that would be mildly controversial. The second problem is the attitude of the Jewish people and their leaders. Currently, there's no desire among them to build a third temple. The average Israeli is very secular. They know that any attempt to build a third temple would result in immediate war with the Muslims, and nobody is looking forward to that. Only a handful of Orthodox Jews really want to build the temple, and they're the ones that's made all the preparations. They have no support at all at this time. Something would have to happen to create a surge of nationalistic pride that would call for a new temple, probably something on the order of finding the Ark of the Covenant. All of this being said, there is a possibility that the ancient temples were not located where the Dome of the Rock is currently sitting. There is strong evidence that their location was to the north of the dome, and that the sacrificial altar inside the dome was one that Solomon built in the middle of the court to handle the thousands of special sacrifices which he offered to the Lord on the day the first temple was dedicated. If that's true, the third temple could be built north of the Dome of the Rock, putting the dome in the court of the Gentiles. This could be the solution the Antichrist comes up with when he negotiates peace between the Jews and the Arabs. Something has to give. These are all just details. There will be a third temple. Its construction is imminent, and it could begin pretty much any time. The Antichrist will desecrate this temple in the middle of the tribulation, and this temple will be destroyed when Jesus returns to defeat the Antichrist. The great earthquake at that time will radically change Jerusalem and the entire planet. After all this, Jerusalem will be a nice level area where the millennial temple could be constructed. This is the temple from which Jesus will reign over all the earth as described in Ezekiel 40. Well, this is one thing that I do believe is going to bring on the second coming, bring on the rapture, is this temple. It doesn't have to be finished before the rapture. It doesn't even have to be started. But we know that the temple must be built. And we do know that it's going to play a huge part in end times events. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you in a while.